Have you ever played that game where someone asks you, if you could go back in time, what would you change? And you have people who would say things like, I would go back in time and kill Hitler. Or I would go back in time and buy a ton of stock in a certain company and then come back and be rich. Or, well, there's a plethora of things people would say. But I was inspired recently by two completely separate events. One being, I went to the Renaissance Festival, which is something I just love doing. And the other is I watched Roots. And as someone who grew up in the South, down the street from an antebellum plantation, it was definitely painful to watch, but important to get that perspective. Anyway, so these are two completely separate things. But I was thinking, if I could go back in time, my goal would be to make an impact that is a positive one that overreaches me, but is like a massive difference, hopefully. And, of course, if you know anything about time travel or the ideas around it, that it's possible if you were to go back in time and, do the smallest thing, you don't know how that would impact the world going forward. The smallest thing could be the biggest change and you don't even know. But, who knows really? Of course, if there's someone that does know, they're hoarding that information. That's not cool. But, so the idea here is, okay, if I could go back in time and really make a difference, I personally would like to go and make somehow, if I could, influence someone of power to influence a decision on how a group of people are being perceived. Because if all it would take is one ruling power, one king, one queen, one group of nobility, a merchant, all it would take really is one person to make a massive change on how, basically the Africans were treated. If Africans were kidnapped, as they were, and brought to England and displayed, if at that moment, say King James, who was the king when slaves were originally brought to American colony of Virginia in Jamestown in 1690, which officially brought slavery to America, if James had have taken a step back and instead of looking at the Africans as just something they could grab and distribute to their colonies or use as workers, however he saw it, instead of him seeing them in that way, what if he had have made an effort and made a different decision, instead decided, I'm going to see you as your own sovereignty. You are the ruler of Africa, this land, and here I'm ruler of Britain. And together we can work together to be trading nations. We can use your insert products and you can use our insert products, and we work together and be, friendly, be allies. Now, can you imagine how different race relations would be now if that's how they were treated from the beginning? They had no opportunity to be enslaved and no opportunity to be taken from their families, and it never happened. It start with, you are equal nation. How can we work together? And of course, that seems very obvious. And also, you may be thinking, well, that may be nice and good, but they would have no way of understanding the impact then that they would have. But I think, see, that's where the time travel comes in. Because if I could, I would take, say, James the First. I would take him and bring him to 2016 and say, you have the opportunity to make a decision that's going to impact for the rest of time. And if you could treat them as their own sovereignty, then you have no idea the impact you'd make. And I would, my goal would be to give him a crash course in what the monster that's created out of this practice that becomes so standard for way too long. And my hope would be that that could make a massive change. But you think, well, also, Britain also had a very negative relationship with India. And I would want the same for India. If we could go back in time and get these people to see the impact of the decisions they made back then and what it led to going forward, if we could get them there in their infancy of decision making and show them the impact they had, the real impact, the negative impact that they had, I like to believe that things would be different and so much would be different. But I am just one person. What do you think of my crazy idea? And also, if you could go back in time, what would you do different? Leave me your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear about the time travel, especially if you know more than anyone else does and can let me know. I'd appreciate that. So, until next time.